Hello, I'm Gigi the Reader, and today I will be reviewing The Tribulations of Ross Young, Supernatural Personal Assistant by A.J. Sherwood. Ross was a night shift cashier at Aunt May's gas station in Salem. Oddly, on the night shift, supernatural things and beings would enter the gas station. He'd have supernatural encounters, to say the least. Things like a hungover vampires who drank Gatorade and bought aspirin there. It was the best job he could get in a small industrial town. He'd seen zombies, vampires, werewolves, unicorns, and the regular customers. A regular was a blonde vampire named Annabella. Her regular purchase was Japanese beer, snacks, and a case of Heineken. She'd pay with a credit card. She never flirted because she knew Ross was gay. Although he's not afraid of the supernatural creatures who came in the store, he was confused as to why they came to a gas station on a regular basis, but the gas station is in Salem. He took the job to pay bills while attending college. He was 2 years in now, but after 2 years he couldn't afford to go anymore. Because he's not confused to see vampires, werewolves, demons, fairies, and all that, Annabelle tries to persuade him to work for some of the supernatural beings, since he's not interested in hunting or killing any of the supernatural beings. She said the vampires would love to hire him to step out in the daylight hours for them. He'd been working at the gas station for 8 months now. Ross was curious and asked his co-worker, Susie, who worked the day shift, if she'd ever encountered any odd customers. She said no, but he did not tell her about the supernaturals he had encountered on the night shift. Hold on, excuse me. That's my co-narrator, Shaquita the Fairy of the Bees. Hold on 1 second. She's always running late. Hold on, here I come. Stop ringing the doorbell like that. Here I come. Stop ringing the doorbell like that. Okay, wow.
Okay, I know I'm late. I'm late again. Alright. Alright, I'm here now. I know I'm late. I'm finally late. Okay. Alright, let me know the mic. Let me know. Look, I was busy, Keith. Don't worry why I was there. I'm here. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Let me open the mic.
You need a mic.
Okay. Alright, so what's this book about? Look, I'm Shaquita, the Fairy of the Bees. And my bees keep me busy. Just know that, Gigi the Reader. But I'm here. Okay, what's this book about? What's this?
It's supernatural things.
Tribulations of Ross Young, Supernatural PA. What?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. We back to, we do not do no more romance. It's not another romance.
No.
Thank goodness. Because I was sick. That was not just. It's because Gigi Reader wanted to step out her genre. The last book we did was so we back to our demons and werewolves and witches and vampires. Okay, that's good. Okay, thank goodness. All right then. Okay, I'm just in here. I know I'm late, but continue on. Continue on.
Okay, so Ross was 21 and had 2 years of college to finish. Some of his friends had already graduated. He didn't want to get a student loan, but he hadn't made enough money to start another year of school. He was going for a degree in accounting. One night a man walked in with a scroll and asked Ross if he could read a spell to him from the scroll. Ross didn't know what type of supernatural he was, but he guessed a magician, warlock, or sorcerer. His name was Keenan. He was upset with that the spell wasn't working, but wouldn't tell Ross what type of spell it was. Ross felt sorry for him because the man seemed desperate to read it to someone, so Ross let him sit at the counter in the store and read it. Ross didn't understand anything he was saying, but it sounded mostly Latin. The magician found the mistake in the spell was with Ross's help. When Ross heard him say something about open bracket, he said, "You never said closed bracket." The man or magician was elated and thanked Ross. He was so happy he put a protective spell around Ross's workstation before he left. Then a vampire named Glenn comes in. He flirts with Ross. Glenn tells Ross he knows Keenan and Keenan is a wizard. Keenan propositions Ross with a job. He wants him to work for him, but Ross is skeptical about working for a vampire clan, so Glenn leaves his card and writes on the back of the card and the salary and the amount he's willing to pay. It reads flexible schedule, $75,000 per year, full benefits and insurance.
What? $75,000 with full benefits? You better take that, because I'm telling you, it's people that make less. Because guess what I make over here with Gigi the Reader as a co-narrator, Shaquita the Fairy make. No, Gigi the Reader paying me? Dust. That's what, zero, zilch is what I get paid.
Oh my God.
Gigi, you know. But take your mic back. Yeah, you ain't paying me, right, Gigi? Take your mic back. You know you're not paying me. Okay, right.
Get away from my mic.
Okay, let me back to the mic. I'm sorry about that, Gigi. It's okay. We know it's a non-monetized site and it's non-profit organization. Okay, Gigi. Calm down. Okay, this is non-profit. We just do it for the fun. Okay, Gigi. Anyway, as I was saying, yes, of course, I hope he take that. Oh, it's a good time. I'm just going to add that it's a good thing that I have other income. You too, Gigi. Because we get paid off of what we do, we'd be starving. I know I would. It's a good thing I get other income. Mr. Queer, the Fairy, the Bees, I mix my coins. It ain't here with Gigi the Reader. But I get my coins.
Okay.
But, okay, yeah, you go ahead with that, Ross. Okay, continue on.
So 5 days later, Ross was contemplating taking the job Glenn offered. It meant he could move out of his brother's place, get his own place, and roll back into college. Another customer is a werewolf by the name of Dunham. He's Scottish and buys groceries from the station for his neighbors, poor kids whose father abandoned them. He asked him why doesn't he buy groceries at the grocery store, and he says because the gas station is closer. Ross tells him about Glenn and that he wants to hire him to be his personal assistant. He asks if he knows much about Glenn and his clan. Dunham tells him yes, and that he's been knowing Glenn a long time and the clan is alright. After Dunham left, Glenn showed up again and asked if he considered his offer. Further, he told him the money from the job would help him finish school. When Ross told him he wasn't familiar enough with Glenn's world, Glenn told him he would lend him some books that could more accurately portray his world. Ross was inquisitive and asked why he thought he was a good candidate to work for him. Glenn said because he never seemed afraid of any of the supernaturals, and the fact that he never did anything with the information he found out about all the supernaturals he'd seen into the station. He never tried to exploit them, and it was rare to find that kind of acceptance of their kind. So Ross read the books about the vampires that Glenn sent him. So far he learned most myths about vampires were made up. Garlic, mirrors, and silver crosses had no effect on them, and they only needed to feed on blood once a month, like a period. Yeah, this is kind of gross. Okay, he found out the job entailed mostly to handle paperwork and idiosyncrasies of human society. One night, while sitting there reading one of the books around 4 a.m., he noticed a flame outside the shop moving along the pavement. It was an elemental, one of the supernaturals he'd been reading about, but too dangerous to be around the gas station pumps. He immediately called Glenn for help. He didn't know how to help. He didn't know how to keep the moving fireball away from the gas pumps. All of a sudden, while he was on the phone with Glenn, the fireball elemental set the gas station on fire. The only thing saving Ross from the flames was the water protection spell Keenan, the wizard, had put around his workstation. As long as Ross stayed behind his workstation, he'd be safe. Glenn told him he was on his way. In the meantime, Ross hit the panic button at his work counter to report the fire and get help. Eventually, the pumps and everything was on fire. The ward around the station was the only thing protecting him. Glenn showed up with Keenan the Wizard, and they showed up in a red sports car with Annabelle. Keenan immediately pointed his wand at the station. Water appeared in midair and washed over the area in a steady fall. Glenn rushed in and snatched Ross out of danger and in front of his sports car. Ross was safe, but the gas station was going all up in flames. When the fire trucks and police pulled up, the police questioned Ross. He couldn't tell them how the fire really started, not that it was from a supernatural elemental. He just told them the truth otherwise, that it was an explosion that happened without any warning. After the police officer questioned Ross and walked away, Annabelle approached Ross and asked, "Maybe you'd like to consider that job offer," while Glenn and Keenan looked at him intensely for a response. As Ross was walking, he revisited the thought and seriously contemplated taking the job offer from Glenn. He appreciated Glenn, Keenan, and Annabelle coming to his rescue and responding so quickly. Work with people who honestly cared about him was a game changer. Right there on the spot, Ross requested an interview with Glenn. Glenn told him there was no need for an interview, but Ross insisted because he wanted to know exactly what the job entailed. In the next chapter, we get a description of Ross and his brother Levon. He and his brother share an apartment. He shares an apartment with his brother. He told his brother about the fire and the station burning down. His brother asked if he was alright. Then he asked what he was going to do about another job. Ross told his brother about Glenn's job offer, but had not told him about Glenn being a vampire, nor did he tell him about any other supernaturals he met or saw at the gas station where he worked. His brother choked on his coffee when Ross told him how much the new job paid that Glenn offered him. $75,000 a year was a lot. Ross also let his brother know that the job came with him having his own place, because it would be necessary for him to live nearby to run errands, so that meant he'd have to move out. Levon let him know that he would be okay with him moving. He could handle the apartment and expenses on his own. His interview was at Glenn's house. It was in a gated community, and Glenn's house was a massive 3-story pale cream brick house. The description of Glenn is odd for a vampire. Although always impeccably dressed, he had red hair with soft curls to the side and freckles scattered across his face. He had gold eyes.
Okay, Gigi. Alright, I gotta interrupt right here. As a co-narrator, I just have to say, a red-haired vampire. What is that? I'm sorry, Gigi. I have never heard of a red-haired, freckle-faced vampire. What is this? Is that the new millennial type vampire? Don't they usually be dark, with dark hair and dark eyes?
Normally.
Slick back. That sounds kind of goofy to me. I mean, maybe he is sex in his own way, but this must be the new millennial vampire. I ain't never heard nothing like that. Look at Bela Lugosi and that sexy ass Christopher Lee. Long time ago. We talking about vampires, and George Hamilton played a vampire. I mean, we talking about dark hair. You talking about dark hair, black hair, slick back. I don't know how. I guess, Gigi. I guess. Go ahead, Ross. That's what you went. What is A.J. Sherwood thinking of? A red-haired. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. I guess if that's what Ross like, I guess that's the new sexy. Alright. Okay. Carry on. Continue on.
Okay, as they chatted over the tea inside the house, Ross learns Glenn's clan has 127 members, but not all vampires were in his clan. The clan was made up of anyone he invited, demons, werewolves, and the like. As for the care of the vampire paperwork, they needed help with things for those vampires who were turned into vampires before the age of 18. Some were over 100, but still looked very young. He also had to file necessary paperwork to keep track of their identities. they didn't let that particular identity become older than 15 years. When Ross asked how long it had been since someone had held the position, Glenn told him it had been 60 years. Ross would pay the monthly bills and pay the staff like housekeepers and people who maintained the grounds of the home. He'd have to take requests from others in the clan too, like buying things that could only be bought during daylight hours, or other things like arranging bail money or a lawyer when anyone got into trouble, which Glenn assured didn't happen more than once a year. Glenn let him know the world knows him by the name Glenn Reagan, the real estate developer. Immediately after the interview, Glenn guided Ross to the backyard where a party had already started to celebrate Ross's accepting the job. Annabelle the vampire and Keenan the wizard were there, and he met a new person, Maria the witch. He even met a family of dwarves who were part of the clan, one named Yorick. They were all drunk and cheering as Glenn introduced them to Ross. So in the second chapter, Ross' first duty at his new job was to keep the backyard party orderly. Everyone was drinking in excess and having fun. Some were having too much fun. Things were getting broken and spilled. While Glenn started to put some of the liquor away, Ross did clean up and broke up a few fights. But anyway, Glenn said he was surprised how well they worked with drunk people, and Ross informed him he was once a bartender for 2 years and he had experience working with intoxicated people. Ross, in the next chapter, takes care of creating new identities for some members who've outlived their old ones and getting the license for a private cemetery to put grave and headstones in and death certificates. Ross asked Glenn why the graves or the plots for a false grave. You only need a headstone. He told him they need to get rid of old possessions from old lives, so they bury them or build a mausoleum for each family to restore things in that had sentimental value from their past lives. Later, Chloe and Dunham told Ross he'd have to find a security guard for the cemetery being built. They needed something called a church grim. What are church grims? He asked. They told him a term centuries old, simply meaning a large guard dog, normally a black in color. Actually, a church grim was a dog who lived and died of old age on the grounds of the cemetery. Then he would be buried in the cemetery and would forever be attached to the cemetery. So they were looking to adopt an old dog, let him live comfortably, and when he died of natural causes, they buried him there. Because he took Chloe and Fred with him to the animal shelter, instead of one dog, they ended up with 6 dogs. They were werewolves, and they loved Chloe and Fred were werewolves, and they loved dogs, but each were only allowed to adopt 3 dogs per person. So Ross was upset that they ended up with 6 large dogs, 3 for Fred and 3 for Chloe. Ross wasn't happy because that was too many dogs. The next chapter, Chloe and everyone are looking for Dunham. She alerts Ross that he's not answering his text messages she'd been sending. So Ross calls Keenan the wizard, and they go looking for Dunham in his Jeep. Keenan the wizard uses a spell to track Dunham's phone. They tracked the phone to the ground of an apartment complex. They found out he'd just been picked up by the dog pound after shifting into his wolf form. So then they go to the dog pound and pick him up. After that incident, and it's near Halloween now in the next chapter, they rent out a warehouse at the edge of town to run as a haunted house. They're in full production when the entire clan participating, Annabelle and Fife, came close at his side, working closely. While in the break room of the haunted house with Maria let Ross know she noticed the closeness between him and Glenn. Ross was attracted to Glenn, and he felt the feeling was mutual, but he wanted to keep their relationship professional since that was his boss. But Maria let him know it had been a long time since he noticed Glenn so smitten with someone like she'd seen with Ross. Something weird happened near the end of the shift one night before closing the haunted house and locking up. Someone put a bag or hood over Ross's head and told him it was a kidnapping. He played along, thinking it was someone in the clan playing out a Halloween trick. A voice told him, Master Manshik wishes to have words with you. He had been pushed into a van. The van screeched off. When it came to a stop, it was in a warehouse. He was confronted by his big, hairy kidnapper that pushed him in front of an Asian man with a wand. The man introduced himself as the High Wizard Manshik. Ross noticed he was in more of what seemed like an airplane hangar, a hangar bay. Mr. Manshik told Ross he's been trying to reach Glenn, but Glenn had been ignoring him. I have waited over a century now for him to fulfill the terms of the bargain. I gave him the assistant he needed to travel to the Americas. He failed to reward me for those services. I am due a bride. He was to give a suitable woman from his clan as a bride. Manshik assumed Ross was Glenn's lover, and he would not return him easily. He told Ross Glenn would have to come looking for him to get him back. Ross didn't know how anyone would find him. Keenan had tracked Dunham down at the last spot through tracking his cell phone, but Ross had left his cell phone back at the haunted house. We find out on page 108, while locked in a room by his kidnapper, Ross is in deep thought. We find out he thinks about his attraction to Glenn. Only his brother knows he's gay. No one knows, not even his sister or mother, who's always trying to set him up on dates with women. Ross manages to escape the room he's in and makes it to an empty office in the building. He finds a landline phone and calls Glenn. He lets Glenn know he'd been kidnapped by Manshik. Glenn gets Keenan to magically trace Ross's phone call, and all the excitement while on the way there and still on the phone with Ross, Glenn makes a cornball request and awkwardly asks Ross out on a date. Glenn came to his rescue by bursting into the building by ramming the back of the building with multiple cars. Ross peeks out from his hiding place from inside the building and saw the whole clan of werewolves, vampires, dwarves ready to fight Manshik's dozen or so henchmen. Manshik yelled to Glenn, calling him an oath breaker. Glenn yelled back, "My father made that promise to you and died before you got around to collecting it." Ross ran from his hiding place into Glenn's arms, and Glenn seized Manshik with lightning speed and snapped Manshik's neck, killing him. Ross rewarded Glenn with a kiss.
What? They had their first kiss?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, okay. What's okay? This is a special occasion part. This is part. Can I hit the button? Can I cue the music? Can I hit the sexy music button?
Okay.
Gigi the reader. Okay. I go add Gigi. You know what, Gigi the reader? I think you forget sometimes. I am Shaquita. I am Shaquita the Fairy of the Bees, but when I'm here, I am Shaquita, the co-narrator. So, I'm going to narrate and hit the sexy music button. Okay? Okay, just a quick interlude. With the kissing, their first kiss. Okay, here we go. The sexy music. No, God damn it. I'm going to hit the sexy music. No. Did you really hit that button? Hit the sexy music button. Here we go.
God, okay. Okay, here's the sexy music. Go ahead, hit your button. Okay, alright. So we find out Glenn has a mother, or a maker, the woman who made him a vampire. Glenn's mother had captured one of Manshik's minions who had kidnapped Ross. She asked him what she would do with him. Ross remembered the guy was nice to him while in his captures, so he told her he'd hire him as his assistant. He was part orc and huge like a gentle giant. Ross liked him, so he hired him. They were preparing for the first date. Side note, Ross didn't know whether to bring condoms because he didn't know if they were going to have sex, but he may not need them either because, side note, Ross didn't know whether to bring condoms because he didn't know if they were going to have sex, but he may not need them either way because vampires couldn't contract STDs. So that's what it says on 124. Mm-hmm.
Okay, again, I don't know if this writer, A.J. Sherwood, knew when he did the study of what vampires are and what they do, the history of them. Okay, as far as we know personally, Gigi, the readers, that, okay, we read earlier that none of the things are true. That the books that Glenn gave Ross about the mirror thing, they can't see their own image in a mirror. And he said it's not that's just a fallacy. That's not true. And that the garlic thing, that doesn't work on them. And as far as I know, they can't procreate, which they can't have, vampires can't have babies. As far as we know, this is the studies of vampires, as far as study of vampires. But this writer says, I guess we wouldn't know. It didn't ever come to question. And no vampire movies that I've seen, or I haven't seen a lot of vampire movies that actually have sex, but I'll be doggone. Bela Lugosi, he wasn't getting down. I mean, as fine as Christopher Lee was in them old vampire movies, the only thing we saw him was biting women on the neck, getting sexy like that. Maybe a hickey, but they say they can't catch the STD. Okay, I guess because vampires don't get sick like humans, but Ross, you can play if you want to, Ross. Play if you want to. Which all these is, you got COVID, and this is 2022. I don't know how it was back in the day with these vampires, or what's going on now. But they got the COVID, the HIV, and the monkeypox. You better protect yourself. I don't know. Maybe your partner, that vampire, Glenn, can't catch no damn monkeypox. You better watch it. He's an STD. I mean, really, we need to see a picture of this doggone. This doggone writer. He needs to put his picture up if we have one, but I don't know. You don't have one, do you, to read it? Anyway, he ought to be saying, I don't know, Ross. All I know, Ross, is that you better go ahead and protect yourself. You don't know where Glenn been. He been around for hundreds of years. We don't know that he can test it out if you want to. Test it if you want to. Play if you want to, Ross. You better wrap it up. Okay, continue on.
Okay, the next chapter is a very explicit description of this escapade back at Ross's place. Glenn moaned to Ross, "Come for me, Agra." Okay, that's what it says. He says, quote, "Come for me, Agra." Alright, here you come.
What did he call him? What was that thing you read? What did he call him? Agra. Hold on, let me get near the mic. Let me get near the... Let me near the mic. He called, "Come to me, asshole."
No.
Is that his new pet name?
No. Didn't say that.
Okay, alright, I'm sorry. I thought he said, "Come to me, asshole." He said, "Agra." What the hell? Okay, so that's those people kind of French or Latin. Agra, how we know he can call him an asshole? Asshole in Latin, Gigi the reader. I mean, he could have called him. We don't know what that means. Okay, I'm gonna Google. I'm gonna get in the Googler. Okay, y'all, here we go again. Here we go again with these writers trying to use these fancy words in a different Latin language or Greek or whatever it is, and he called his lover. He said on page 137, "Come for me, Agra." Okay, that's a new pet name, whatever the hell that means, Gigi. Okay, all right, okay, I'm gonna get back to Mike, but I'm gonna go Google her, and I'm gonna Google what the hell is Agra. Okay, all right, continue on.
Okay, I also go on to say that during sex, Glenn says Ross. It says during sex, Glenn hit Ross's prostate. This is what it says on 137, that Glenn hits Ross's prostate.
Wait a minute. Hold up, Gigi, the reader. Hold on. This is still PG-13. They were having sex. I mean, we are talking about sex. And describing, he hit his prostate.
Yeah.
It says that he hit him so hard. I mean, okay, since we talk about sex, we talk about booty sex. He hit him so hard in the booty, he hit the prostate. I mean, this is a little bit rated X. PG to read. This ain't PG-13 no more. They talking about, yeah, he hit. Glenn hit Ross in his booty so hard that he hit his prostate. This author or writer should be ashamed of her or himself. Let's say A.J. Woods. A.J. Woods is the author of this
Sherwood.
This book.
A.J. Sherwood.
Now he ought to be ashamed of himself. Okay, A.J. Sherwood?
Yes.
A.J. Sherwood ought to be ashamed of himself to write this. And I'm guessing it's a young adult, PG-13, where he say this man was getting a groove on with, this vampire was getting the groove on. He's still a man before he was a vampire. Was getting his groove on with Ross and hit Ross so hard he felt it in his prostate. What the hell going on? Okay. And you have to understand what a prostate is. For a long time, I didn't know what a prostate was on a man. I thought the prostate was his balls. But okay, he hit him. You know what a prostate is located in the, if you look at a diaphragm of a drawing of a prostate on a man, it's the ooh, child, it's the one from PG-13 to rated RX, so real quick. I'm just saying, okay, alright, this kind of spicy. This is saucy right here, okay. Well, I guess Ross was enjoying it. He said he hit his prostate with a female when having sex. She said, man, hit the G-spot with this. He hit his prostate. He must be packing, Gigi Lorena. I'm just saying. Okay.
Get away from my mic.
That guy must be packing something good. He hit him in his prostate. Okay, take your mic back. Gigi Lorena, alright. But he must have hit him. He hit him in his prostate, Gigi Lorena. That Sherwood, I guess you ought to be shaming himself, Gigi Lorena. I'm gonna give you back your mic. Okay, alright now. Okay, alright, I'm just playing. But you ought to be shaming himself. Okay, alright. Continue on.
Okay, so Ross gets a call from his brother Levon telling him their mother is upset because she hasn't seen or visited him since his housewarming party. So Ross tells him he has a boyfriend now and it's his boss Glenn. But Levon tells him that's not a good idea to date your boss. But Ross is nervous that after another visit she might suspect something between him and Glenn. He's nervous because she doesn't know he's gay. He met his mother for dinner at a fish and chips restaurant. Her name is Amani. She's 50 years old and still works at a hospital. She has Louisiana roots. As they sat down to eat and started to chat, she asked him about his job. He said it's been keeping him busy, and without skipping a beat, he told her the other reason is that he has a boyfriend now. She gave him a blank stare and asked, "You gay, son?" He answered, "Yes, mama." She took it in stride and said, "And all this time I've been trying to set you up on dates with girls. Were you doubting my love for you? You could have told me sooner." The relief bowled him over. His brother met him there for dinner too. Neither of them had met Glenn yet, but on top of not meeting Glenn, Ross didn't know how to explain that Glenn was a supernatural. Him and the entire clan he worked with had befriended. In the next chapter, at the Christmas party, there's food for everyone in every culture of the clan. Keenan is Australian and Dunham is Welsh. The Christmas party was at Glenn's house with over 100 people there. Unfortunately, his mother showed up at the party unexpectedly. She was awed at all the different creatures. Now he was forced to explain the clan to her. He rushed her into Glenn's office where he could explain to her. He said, "Remember the stories Grandma would tell me, all the stories of voodoo and the creatures that lived in the Louisiana swamps?" She replied, "Those were just tall tales." He replied, None of it's tall tales, Mama." As they sat on the couch in Glenn's office, "What is this place?" He answered her, "The clan of Oregon, a home to 126 supernatural beings from a different mythologies, cultures, and countries, he explained. And the one with all the fox-looking tails, she asked. A kitsune, a nine-tailed fox from Japan, he answered. It also explained the gnomes and werewolves, and he explained Bobo, his half-orc assistant. Then she asked, and what is Glenn? A vampire, he answered. She then joined the party and got acquainted with everyone. The holidays had passed now, and Ross was enrolled back in college taking full-time classes. He suddenly got a call from Dunham telling him the vampire clan from the east side were stirring up trouble, two of them insisting on busting into the museum. It was the new museum on 5th and Maple, Ross exclaimed. They're right in the middle of our clan's territory. There was about to be a territorial dispute. Ross woke Glenn up with a phone call and then went to his house and drove him to the dispute where Dunham, Keenan, Chloe, and Willow were waiting. On the way, Glenn called Jarek, the other clan's leader, to ask him why two vampires from his clan were trying to break into a museum in his territory. Jarek told him he had no idea. When they arrived at the museum parking lot, Glenn warned the two vampires that they were on his territory. The two vampires told them the museum had collected LGBT journals, love letters, pictures, and a few portraits from the 19th century Europe. Some of the letters even Glenn would be interested in. In other words, the two vampires told him the museum had letters and personal artifacts that including some that belonged to Glenn. One of the vampires said, "There's things in there that absolutely shouldn't see the light of day." The one vampire told Glenn to let them pass and offered him to collect his things as well. Glenn told Jarek they could solve this by calling a professional thief to break into the museum and steal their things back. So Glenn comes up with a solution on how to get their possessions back. He tells Jarek that he knows a professional thief that can get the things back. Jarek asks who. Edelon, Glenn answered. Jarek agrees with Glenn, so he called Edelon right there on the spot and asked would he or could he break into the museum. They were old friends and he told him of course he would, so the two vampires agreed to text Ross a list of their stolen things when Edelon arrived. Ross met with Edelon next day and gave him a list of things to retrieve from the museum. Glenn warns Edelon that Ross belongs to him and he's off limits. Edelon says, "So it's like that," he said. Glenn replies, "Exactly like that. I will not share him, Ivan." So we not only find out that Edelon is gay, we also find out his real name is Ivan, and he's Russian. And Ivan is married. He has a husband.
Oh, wait a minute. What's going on here? Oh, okay. All right. So we get to the part where Adeline does look up this other guy, this other professional thief. What is he, Italian? Russian? Oh, he's a Russian? Yeah, see, I forget. We're at that part. I did my own little research about him. I did my own little research. Y'all forget that I am Shaquita the Fairy. I'm Shaquita the Fairy of the Bees, but I am also the co-narrator. And I'm not only co-narrate, and y'all know this, and Gigi the reader, you know this, that I also do research and I get the tea on everybody. So I got the good gossip, okay? And this ain't gossip. This is the tea. I'm not going to just pour the tea, serve the tea. I'm going to spill the tea on this. Now, okay, Alan, he got his own husband. He say he got a husband. But his husband's in transition to be a transgender female. And his husband got a friend that he hangs out with. Everybody got their own good Judy. What the gays call their Judy. They hang around. But he fell out with his husband. Adelon's husband fell out with his friend. And his friend went to a podcast and had an interview with this guy that interviews people. And he got the tea. They fell out because the guy that hangs around Adelon's husband said that his transition looks a hot mess, that he don't even look. He wear wigs and wear just little tight skirts and dresses, but he looked like a big old hard man. That's right. I'm just saying, Gigi, I got the tea. Guess what else I got, Gigi? Guess, Gigi.
Oh my God.
You know it. I got a recording. I have a recording. Yes, I do.
God.
I got a recording, Gigi the reader. Okay, I mean, it's an interview. Like I said, I'm Shaquita. I am the co-narrator here, Gigi the Reader, and I have to do what I do. So I got to record that this man going off on Ivan's husband, saying his transition into, and I'm all for transgender people, but he say that transgender, when he gets locked up, he can call his, okay, I got the name, his name, Edelman's husband's name, who's transitioning, he calls himself Madam Lowe. And Madam Lowe transition, I heard, wasn't all that doing all that good. He ain't transforming too good into his transition, because he's still like a hard man. Because when he gets locked up, he's not fully transitioned. So he said, this guy is serving the tea on him, saying when he gets locked up, they for sure don't put him with the females. He gets in trouble and gets locked up in jail. They put him with the men's, the guys. They put him in jail. He goes straight to make that hard left and go to the jail, the male prison or jail, whatever you want to call it, and locked up with the men because he ain't hardly passed for no woman. Okay. All right. Okay. We're going to play the record. All right. Continue on. Go ahead, Gigi. Continue on.
Okay, here's the recording. Here's Shaquita's recording of Adeline's or Ivan's friend describing, or ex-friend, describing how Ivan's transgender husband, or had transgender, his husband, who's a transgender female now, is not so much a transgender. And his name is Gucci, and he has an interview, a podcast he's giving someone. He's describing that that Ivan's husband, or transgender husband, wife, didn't take too well. He doesn't look like anything like a female. And talks about his wig, talk about how he goes to the male jail when he gets locked up. So here it is. Here's the recording of the interview.
Lay his motherfucking bill.
Madam Lowe is a trans woman.
That's the who?
A trans woman.
Phillips County don't feel like that. That's why every time they lock that nigga up, they pop that motherfucking wig cap off. You see afro, he look like Don King by the motherfucking head, and he goes straight to motherfucking cell block deep, bitch. Okay? Every time he going towards the county, that nigga bust that motherfucking hard left and go in the motherfucking bullpen with the nigga.
Okay, so I'm gonna refer to her as she.
You can do what the fuck you want to do, bitch. This is America. But bitch, in the motherfucking eyes of any other motherfucker that ain't blind, bitch, that's a big bulky, big foot ass, 11-foot flip-flop wearing ass nigga.
So when you saw her and picked you up, did you think she looked like a woman, or, and be fair?
Oh my God, what big feet. Oh my God, what big hands. A big bulgy ass back. And look, you know how when you pour water on a cat, bitch, and all that shit pop up in the back like that, bitch? That bitch looked like a hissing motherfucking animal, bitch. Okay? It was after hours. I felt like the nigga ran out of the zoo, and he was just running wild in the motherfucking city, bitch. A foreign chimpanzee. A foreign motherfucking monkey, bitch. And you up there lying, telling these motherfucking people that he looked at motherfucking soft. Big head, big feet, bitch. Ain't nothing little about that motherfucking Don't talk to me like that.
Because this bitch said, oh my, what big hands you got? Oh my, what big bitch. Okay, come on, you're taking me out of my, I'm not by it, bitch. Okay, so you met her, you was like, she looked like Hunt, she looked fishy or whatever.
I said what?
You have to be fair. Madam Lowe looks like...
I'm gonna be fair, Milan. I'm serious.
Okay.
Don't put no motherfucking words in my mouth. I still bogey. Very motherfucking bogey. Bitch didn't have no glue on the wig, bitch. It's hot in the summer. Okay? Hot in Chicago. Summertime. Fuck nigga, you riding around, bitch, with AC broad, bitch, like a motherfucking bulldozer, bitch. You ain't got no motherfucking air, no motherfucking glue to keep that motherfucking tight-ass wig down. Mind you, when I see them, you know, I'm small and petite. You know what I'm saying? A bad bitch. When I think that fuck nigga bitch, I was scared for my motherfucking life. But I know
how tall is Madam Lowe in real life?
Madam Lowe is 6 feet, 6
how much do you think Madame Lowe weighs?
275. I'll be fair.
Girl, you is lying.
275 with a good belly.
Okay, so she's 6 feet, about 275, and you thought she was not fish. So why would you? So when y'all went out, were people clocking her, or was people like your brother?
If you get this, I took that hoe to the motherfucking bodega. If you get clocked by the Arabs, so they proud you to go. That's when she first got clocked by that motherfucking Arabs, the Indians, bitch. They knew something was right with that motherfucker. You get clocked by Indians, bitch. I knew it. I said they in the store talking about you, girl. I said they in the store talking about you, girl. She said, I know, that's why I pissed around like that, like I did, with the motherfucking flip-flops on. So they already knew, bitch. It was something wasn't right about him. They knew it.
Okay, so why would your brother say why did you tell her that your brother didn't know the tea and he thought she was fit?
He was bleeding on Jesus Christ, okay? Bitch, on Mary had a couple of motherfucking nice firm set of goggles. Bitch, he was leaning over to me, bitch, whispering in my motherfucking ear like a bird chirping. Talking about, that's a man. That's a man.
But you said to Lowe that he said he don't know the tea. So
because I didn't want Lowe to be scared. You know, when the trains be thinking the trains, no, they get spooked, bitch. They get spooked. They be thinking they gonna get robbed or motherfucking killed. One or the other or both.
So you never told her that the trade thought she was real, and basically you was just saying that because you didn't want her to be nervous that she was gonna get robbed or killed by the trade because he clocked her teeth.
Because Lowe was already nervous. Lowe thought he was gonna get set up. Lowe thought he was gonna get motherfucking set up a lot.
So y'all go out. The people you're at the. So look, I'm back. So y'all at the 50-yard line. Was the old man at the 50-yard line clocking her, or they thought she was cut?
Everybody knew he was a man. Everybody, Milan. Even the motherfucking security. Everybody. When they did the search, you know they got to do a search before you come to the club. Everybody. Even the security. You know what I'm saying? They went down. You know they strip search. They normally go down and they look at your feet and then they, they do that. The searching and shit. And bitch, when they went down and looked at that nigga's feet, they knew it was the motherfucking man. Ain't no woman, did not one woman walking there with some fat ass, long ass flip flops with holes like that. They knew it was the motherfucker working night, bitch. They knew what the fuck was going on.
Oh my goodness. Okay, back to Ivan's job in the museum. Ross asked Ivan to take a picture of the letter written by Sven and takes him the pic of the letter. Sven is one of the vampires from other territory. That was one of his stuff out the museum. So Ross asks Ivan to take a picture of the letter written by Sven and takes him the pic of the letter when he gets it. Ivan agreed to do it. So Sven was the vampire from the other clan. Ross wanted to see the letter. Ivan successfully stole everything back and returned it to everyone. Ross asked Glenn what was it he wanted to be kept secret. Glenn only answered, "It's not something I want you to see." So Ross didn't push the issue. After Ivan texted a pic of the letter Sven wanted to him, Ross thought it was interesting and texted to Jerry, Sven's boss. So the next chapter, the story time lapse up 7 years. Ross is now 28 years old. Ross has completed his college and has a job at a forensic accounting company, but has put in his 2-week resignation to spend more time with Glenn. Ross is still being pestered by the vampire Fiad, Glenn's mother, to letting her change him into a vampire. Glenn was surprised and elated at the news that the day at dinner when Ross told him he resigned from his job. Glenn told him he had a surprise for him too. He pulled out a black box out of his suit jacket and proposed marriage to Ross. Glenn has proposed in front of the entire clan and Ross's mother. Because the clan had thrown a party for them, Ross's mother, Amani, who'd been turned into a vampire, happily congratulated her son and said it was about time. She had been married to Dunham now for 6 years. Fiat, Glenn's mother, congratulated Ross and exclaimed, "I can finally turn you, can I?" After the wedding, Ross replied. The last and final scene in the book is the turning ceremony, where Fiat, Glenn's mother, changes Ross into a vampire. Glenn held Ross in his lap as he laid across the couch. Fiat bit into his neck until he lost consciousness. When she was done, she looked at Glenn and said, "You'll have an eternity with him now." And that ends the story of the Tribulations of Ross, the young supernatural personal assistant. It was a short book and a fun read, so out of 5 stars, I'll give it a 5. Thank you for listening, and please join me on my next review, a book called The Iron Will of Jenny Lowe by F.C. Yee. Thank you for listening, and please like and subscribe.